Good evening and welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. Thank you for joining me this Saturday. It has been an incredible day. As I always say on the show, mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. Eyes open, heads up, stay focused. And today was an incredible sight of civic engagement in mass resistance in this country. The No King's Day protest happened today all across the country. Nearly 2,000 protests, all converging, everyone together, protesting what this administration is doing. And it was just an incredible movement. We're going to show this to you four states at a time. So this was in Lincoln, Nebraska today. Look at there, Lincoln, Nebraska. Protesters there starting early in the morning. Then you see Chicago right there. Chicago protesters together. Just massive crowds here. In Los Angeles, this was the scene there. You can see the baby Trump inflatable, and Los Angeles has been on everyone's radar recently because of what's been happening in terms of Donald Trump federalizing the California National Guard, overstepping the governor of California to do so, essentially to be put in the city to intimidate the protesters that were there. They still showed out regardless of military presence being in their city. They still showed out. This is Los Angeles today. Massive, more than 20,000 people in the streets of Los Angeles today. Incredible scene. This was in Oklahoma City here. As you can see, protesters there in Oklahoma City. You have this aerial shot of the protesters there. Just an incredible sight. Once again, all over the country today. All of this. Nashville, Tennessee, here it is. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, look there. All these protesters, massive scenes here. New York City, both in New York City and Nashville today, it was raining and protesters were still out there in defense of democracy. Look at those crowds there, just incredible sights. In New York City, just marching down with their umbrellas. No King's Day. Miami, Florida. Just look at that. Look at those crowds there. This is San Diego, California. This is Glendale, California, where the mayor actually joined in there. You see, he's interacting with his constituents. He's interacting with protesters. The mayor of Glendale, California has joined in on this massive civic event. This is in Indianapolis, Indiana. This is Dallas, Texas, which is typically more conservative, which is typically more Republican. This is Dallas, Texas. Look at all those protesters there marching down the street. This is Houston, Texas here. San Francisco. This is San Francisco, California. All of the protesters essentially got together on the beach there and they formed with their bodies letters that read, "No King!" exclamation mark. Here's another angle of that right there. Just an incredible sight. No King. This is out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Seniors leaving the assisted living facility to protest what has been going on in the country. Here we have footage out of Summerville, South Carolina. 4,000 showed up. 4,000 people showed up here in Summerville, South Carolina. Just look at that site there. This is Greenville, South Carolina. You see the residents there dancing to the Cupid Shuffle. Residents there dancing to the Cupid Shuffle there. This is Raleigh, North Carolina. Of course, yesterday here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show, we spoke to Emma Wozniak. She is a political activist. She's active in North Carolina. She's been protesting for years in this country, and this was some footage from her TikTok earlier today.
I'm here at the No King's Day protest in downtown Raleigh. We are on the highway, so there's cars honking. I'm surrounded by American flags. We have a great turnout today. It goes all the way down that street and all the way down to Wake Forest, y'all. We have so many people here. I'm so serious. Get out and protest today if you can. There's another protest in Raleigh at about 4 p.m. if I remember correctly. We need you here.
Again, that was Emma Wozniak. She was here on the Jeremiah Patterson Show yesterday. That was her today in Raleigh, North Carolina, protesting. And you see just the massive crowds on both sides of the street doing chants. Cars are honking and celebrating the protesters and encouraging them to keep going. This was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Look at this there. Just an incredible sight. Protesters all over. This is aerial footage. Protesters all over against what the Trump administration has been doing in this authoritarian regime. These are some protest signs that we gathered here at the Jeremiah Patterson Show to compile this footage together for you all tonight. Quote, billionaires are the only minority ruining this country. Look at this one. Rapist felon, not king. And then you see like it has the funny emojis there. This is another sign here. It says, we're going to read the first one here. The first one says, no tyrants, no kings. These are not American things. See, I love how these signs are rhyming. Unparalleled creativity from local Americans here. This is another one. Pro-America, anti-Trump. Veterans against Trump. If you read what it was on that guy's shirt there, it says, immigrants are not criminals, but the president is. Adjacent to him on the right of him, you see this one lady here. She has hers. It says, my father did not land on Normandy for this, meaning during World War II. This is another sign here out of Philadelphia. It says, this city has been telling kings to eat since 1776, and we're not stopping now. This is out of South Carolina here. It says, no one is illegal when the president is a felon. Right. So true. This is another one here. This is actually from a Holocaust survivor. His sign reads here. It says, I need to be able to tell my grandchildren I did not stay silent. That is a very powerful sign, especially when you consider poems like this that were written during that time. Quote, first they came for the socialists and I did not speak up because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. So once again, it's about, just speaking out regardless. Speaking out in the sense of when authoritarian regimes begin to oppress those that are less fortunate, begin to oppress those that are marginalized, begin to oppress those people, and to treat them with degradation, no regard for humanity. That you then realize, you have to realize in this moment right now, that anyone can be subjected to that type of degradation, that type of moral erosion. Anybody can be subjected to that. So that is a very, very powerful sign. I mean, everyone always thinks about, essentially, if you were in your hero moment, if you were in your moment of setting aside pride, if you were in your moment of setting aside self-aggrandization, if you were in your moment where you were in the 1930s in Nazi Germany, what would have you done? What would you have done? It's what you're doing right now. Whether that is protesting, whether that is donating to democratic institutions, it's what you are doing right now. And if you can feel good about yourself right now, then you're doing the right thing. Because as I always say on the show, mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. This is in Arkansas today. Red Arkansas. Look at that. Thousands of Arkansas residents showing out, protesting there. You see one of the signs there says, America has no kings. That's in Arkansas. This is from the Democratic Party of Arkansas tweeting here, quote, thousands of Arkansas showing up in Fayetteville to say it loud and clear. The people rule. No kings. Our elected officials work for us. This is our dear friends at the Midas Touch Network, our dear journalistic colleagues there. You see one of the signs there says, due process for all. The other sign here reads, liberty and justice for all. This is the other one from the little tiny toddler there. It says, I love naps, but I stay woke. Unparalleled creativity from Americans all across the board today, protesting against what is happening under this administration. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, all Americans are out there today protesting in the streets. And it wasn't just protest. It was also collective speeches from Democratic officials across the country to raise alarm about what's going on and essentially to continue to bolster their voices as pro-democracy in this authoritarian movement.
We've got no kings and we've got no slaves. We've got no masters and no serfs. Those of us who aspire and attain to public office are nothing but the servants of the people. And the moment that somebody in public office begins to act like the master of the people, that is the moment to evict, eject, reject, impeach, try, convict, and start all over again.
It's not radical to serve, to protect, to protest, to love. No, it's not radical. It's American. And that's why we're going into communities across this country, not with closed fists or with tanks, but with open hearts and open arms. We are showing up with truth in our hands and love in our voices because we love this country. And we know that loving America means holding it accountable to its highest promises.
On this very day, in this very city, 248 years ago, there was a Continental Congress that adopted this flag. Did you all know that? That's why today is Flag Day, y'all. It was defiant. It was bold. It was a signal of hope in the face of despair. They believe now, as they believe then, as we believe now. As Leah said, courage is contagious. They raised the flag not just as a symbol of a nation, but as a resistance to tyranny. That's what that flag stands for. And when they did that, you'll never guess what happened next. We beat the bastards. We won.
So it is only fitting that we gather here today, not in fear, but in faith. Not in despair, but in defiance. We gather here in the shadow of Independence Hall to declare that we, the people, still believe in democracy. We still believe in justice. And we still believe in a nation without kings.
That's what the best of American history has taught us. I stopped by to tell you and remind you today that the force of truth, the force of love, the force of justice, and the force of equality is more powerful than any would-be king. More powerful than brute force, more powerful than mean money, more powerful than big tech feudalism, more powerful than anything we know. When we stand up, and when we stand together, and when we refuse to bow, we can build a movement to save the heart and soul of America. Are you standing? When the founders refused to bow to King George, a fourth force stood with them. When the slave abolitionists right here in Philadelphia, black and white, refused to bow to the king-like rule of chattel slavery and slave masters, a fourth force stood with them. When women, black and white, refused to bow to those who didn't want them to vote, a fourth force stood with them. When segregationists and Jim Crow politicians' lips dripped with the words of interposition and nullification, people like Rosa Parks and Viola LaWusa and Fannie Lou and Martin and Rabbi Heschel, men and women of every birth, refused to bow, and a fourth force stood with them. And I tell you, the force of truth and the force of love and the force of equality and the force of justice is more powerful than any would-be king named Trump or MAGA or anything. And so it's time. It's time for us to stand together like never before.
Once again, Democratic officials and local leaders and powerful leaders all across the country today just speaking out about what's going on in regard to the attacks on the United States in terms of the rule of law, the disregard for the Constitution of this country, the disregard for due process in this country, the president not listening to the courts, defying court orders, doing whatever he wants, trying to create a situation where all of us capitulate, where all of us bend the knee to this administration. That is not happening. That is not happening. He said the protesters will be met with heavy force. There were multiple threats against peaceful protesters today to deter them, to intimidate them, to not come out and to protest, which is a constitutional right, by the way. To not come out into protests just so everything would be quiet, everything would be hush. There was no dissent. No one would come out. Everyone would stay home. That is not what happened today. Americans all across the country turned out and they protested. From Indianapolis to raining in Nashville, Tennessee, everyone showed out today. Everyone. From San Diego, California, all the way to Summerville, South Carolina. And then, of course, to celebrate his birthday, also today is the anniversary of the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army. This is what happened today in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump holding a military parade in the style of a dictatorship. We do not have these happen in the United States. We are a democratic republic. At least we're trying to hold on to that. But this is Donald Trump there, holding a military day parade, standing there, the very look, like he wants to portray himself as a dictator, looking over the military where he's all powerful. But guys, it's a sign of weakness. Do not take that as, oh, he's portraying strength. He's not. You, the people, have the power. You, the people, have the power. And what happened today in showing out all across the country, from the south to the east to the west and the north, everywhere, all across the country, you showed out in massive numbers. No King's Day protest was a colossal success, and all of you should be proud of what you did today. All of you. So give yourselves a pat on the back. Give yourselves, smile. You did this today. Mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. I'm going to read you this here from my book because I wanted to show you this in terms of I feel like this rule today is very powerful. This is from my book, Resistance. I wrote this after the 2024 election, and I feel like today it is most powerful to read. It is the very first rule here, rule number 1, quote, "In a time like this, it is normal to feel hopeless and despondent. Those feelings are completely valid and should be acknowledged and processed. But do not isolate. Isolation and silence teach wannabe authoritarian actors what they can do. If people relinquish to despair and stay at home, there will be no one to counter, question, or protest the authoritarian agenda being put in place. Isolating and remaining silent is anticipatory obedience, essentially teaching power that it can control you and regulate your emotions." That is rule number 1 out of my book, Resistance. I wrote it after the 2024 election. It's called Resistance, a strategic guide on how to fight back, defend democracy, and avoid a Trump dictatorship. If you're interested in getting that, the link to purchase it is right there. But rule number 1 there, do not isolate. That is rule number 1 of if you isolate, if you capitulate, that's how you fall. And you give in there. Dictatorship happens, authoritarian government put in place fully. Citizens don't react. Citizens have no dissent. Well, the leader can do whatever he wants because there's no pushback. But all of you today, you got out in the streets. You got out in the streets and you protested. So be proud of yourselves. This was a win for the people today. This was a win for the mass resistance movement, because what I always say on this show is mass resistance defeats authoritarianism. That is the only way. That is the only way. If you are an avid listener or watcher of the Jeremiah Patterson Show, you know we've covered the resistance movement in this country, history to present. And the only way that it ever works is the people. You, the people, have the power. They do not have the power. Authoritarian regimes fall because the people stand up and they fight back and they protest and they speak out against the atrocities and the horrors that is going on. And they defend institutions. That is how authoritarian regimes are defeated, because the people show up consistently and perpetually. How bad do you want that democratic republic that you were born into? How bad do you want to keep that democratic republic? It is the sanctity of institutions that continue to uphold us as long as we defend them. A republic as long as we can keep it. No king. No king. No dictators. No authoritarian leaders. This is the United States. Incredible work today. Incredible work to everyone who participated, to everyone who organized, to everyone who went out. Great work. Great work. We'll be right back. The Jeremiah Patterson Show is an independent news media platform. If you want to see more special reports like this, please consider becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack at TJPS News. When you become a paid subscriber, you'll get immediate access to exclusive content, opinion pieces, the upcoming Resistance podcasts, and The More You Know, a series focused on diving deeper behind the headlines with historical context. According to one viewer who upgraded to a paid subscription, quote, "I like your deep dive style. There are many doing the quick news updates, which is helpful, but we need both." Another viewer said, "Jeremiah, you are a fantastic reporter and I truly value your work." I do this because it matters, because the investigative journalism is imperative, and most of all, I'm unabashed and unafraid to tell the truth. Upgrade now from free to paid for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. So today is June 14th. Tomorrow is June 15th. I call it the big 615. Tomorrow is my anniversary. I'm eternally 10, but in the eyes of the law, I guess, as we say, I will be 20 years old. But I'm celebrating my anniversary by leaving the news here, of course, going on vacation. So I'm super excited about that. I've been doing back-to-back coverage and reporting. So I'm super excited to get some leisure, to get some relaxation, to disassociate and to disconnect from the news, to get some personal time because I deserve it. I would like to personally thank all of you so much for your paid subscriptions and your donations to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. You are the core foundation of making sure that this work is sustainable, of funding this work, because independent journalism, it is necessary, it is essential, it is imperative, especially in a time where they are kicking off journalists on mainstream media just for telling the truth, just for standing up to this authoritarian regime. So I thank you for your donations to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. And if you can't donate, thank you for spreading the word about the show. The growth this year has been insane. I started doing this nearly 7 years ago at just 13 years old in my grandparents' house, and I'm still doing it now. So I would like to thank all of you for sustaining this work and for believing in me, and for continuing to comment and to like and subscribe. I appreciate all of your gracious words. I enjoy hearing your stories. I enjoy hearing how some of you like the show. Maybe if you didn't like the show, if you have something that you want to add, I appreciate all of it. Thank you so very much for watching this show. It is comments like that. It is motivation and encouragement like that that keeps me going here as an independent journalist, doing the news, reporting the news without fear, favor, or corporate interference. So I thank you so very much today. I have done a whole host of interviews this week. Lots of writing and editing and recording and producing. That is me every single day. It is no other person. I do not have a staff. It is just me that does all this by myself. So continuing to report the news without fear, favor, or corporate interference. If you can become a paid subscriber to the Jeremiah Patterson Show, please be sure to do so for just $7.99 a month or $75 a year. I promise you, you will not regret it. If you'd like to support the Jeremiah Patterson Show, please be sure to support us at one of these sites here. Of course, you can support us on Cash App or PayPal or Venmo at TJPS News. Also, please be sure to follow me at TJPS News on Substack and Blue Sky for more consistent reporting and updates, although I probably won't be posting or interacting that much since I will be on vacation. However, I'll probably just be restacking and reposting things. So thank you all so much. My heart is full tonight as I get ready for these Eternally 10 festivities. So I thank you all so very much for your support from the bottom of my heart. I'm grateful to God for all of this, but I'm also deeply, deeply, eternally grateful for all of you tonight. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good one.